Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's GSA webinar all about our dance program. We're so glad that you've joined us, and whether you're watching us live or watching this recording later on, so welcome. We've got an exciting, I think, conversation planned. So my name is Nick Kovalt. I'm the Executive Director of the Governor's School for the Arts. I'm also an alum of our vocal music program, and I'm a big fan of dance. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a dancer, but I love dance, so I'm excited to chat with you all this evening. Before we get started, we just want to learn a little bit more about those of you who are joining us live on Zoom. So I'm going to launch a poll, and if you don't mind letting us know a few things about you. What we're looking for here is, are you a student? Are you a parent? We know which art form you're interested in, of course, but if you want to let us know if you're interested in any other art forms outside of dance, that could definitely be interesting. And then whether you've attended or one of these webinars before, or if you've viewed a recording, and also if you've applied for GSA before. So that would mean that you're currently a junior and you applied as a sophomore. So I'll just leave that up there for a few moments. And after you've had a chance to take the poll, please jump into the chat and say hello to the group. Let us know your first name and what county you're coming from, so that you all also get a sense of who's here as well. All right, so while you all are, I'm going to go ahead and end our poll here and share the results. All right, so it looks like most of our attendees this evening are students who are currently able to apply to GSA, current 10th or 11th graders. We also got a few parents joining us. Thank you. Maybe your child's in rehearsal or at the studio right now. It's cool to see that some of you are interested in other art forms like creative writing, film and photo, musical theater. And it looks like about half of you have attended a previous session, half of you haven't, and everyone is a first-time applicant. So that is awesome. All right. So this evening we're joined by a few guests, or a couple guests from GSA. First, I want to introduce my fellow colleague on the GSA administrative team, our program coordinator, Aminata Jah Finch. Ami, how are you?
I am good. I feel great being here, especially since daylight saving times happened. So I enjoyed getting that extra hour of sleep yesterday.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks,
Yes.
Ami. And Ami, just so you all know, is if you all call the GSA helpline or email us at GSA Info, Ami will often be the person that speaks with you there. So thanks, Ami. And yeah, it's super weird that the sun is setting outside of our window right now. It always feels like the first time. And then I'm so happy to welcome a member of GSA's dance faculty, Theresa Bautista, our main guest for the day. So hello, Theresa. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. It's always fun chatting with you, Theresa. So we know you're on GSA's dance faculty, but tell us a little bit more about yourself beyond that.
Sure. I like to describe myself as a dancer, choreographer, interdisciplinary artist, and arts educator. I've taught at GSA now for 17 or 18 summers now. So a really long time that I've been with this program because it's so wonderful. When I'm not at GSA, I am currently on faculty at the University of Kentucky's Department of Theater and Dance. So I'm a dance instructor in the dance program there. And I'm also an instructor at the Louisville Ballet School. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Theresa. Well, before we dive into dance specifically with Theresa, I'm going to share my screen and just lead us through some fast facts overview of GSA. For those of you who have attended one of these before, the next couple minutes will be a quick review. It's going to be an even quicker review than you've seen in previous webinars, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about a few things. So bear with me while I share my screen, and then Theresa will be right back with you. All right. So again, today's session is all about dance. If you aren't already aware, today's session is part of a larger series of virtual info sessions that we're hosting throughout autumn for applicants, parents, and educators. So we hope you'll take advantage of these. You can see we got started back on October 6th with GSA 101. On October 13th, we walked through what an applicant guide is and how to use it. We'll be looking at the applicant guide a lot today. On November 3rd, we actually did a walkthrough of completing an application, so you could actually see the inside of the application portal, which is very helpful, I think. Of course, you know about the ARC-Form specific webinars this month. Next month on December 1st, we'll be repeating GSA 101 if you want an overview again of the summer program and application process, and then we'll be doing some open Q&A on December 15th. But keep in mind, these webinars are not the only way, and not necessarily the best way even, to be in touch with us. We're here for you at the GSA Administrative Team. You can give us a call anytime at that number there, 502-566-5192. You can give us a call anytime. We'll only get back to you mostly on Monday through Fridays, 9 to 5 Eastern Time. You can also email us at gsainfo@kentuckyperformingarts.org. And if you want to keep up with us on social media, we're on Facebook with our program name and at KYGSA on Instagram. So just to quickly review what GSA is, we're a 3-week residential summer program that takes place on a college campus. And students attend GSA for one of 9 ARC forms. Also, the program is completely tuition free. We're really excited about that. And speaking of things we're excited about, if you haven't heard, we recently made the announcement that we're going to be able to double the size of the summer program for the next 3 years. And that's thanks to supplemental funding that we're receiving from the Kentucky Department of Education. So that means that overall, for the entire program, we're expecting to grow from our previous class size of 256 to accepting approximately 500 students for the summer of 2022. So that's really exciting news for us and for you as applicants. Now we're still finalizing exactly how, when, and where the expansion will take place. There are many questions that you might have about the expansion that we just don't have answers to quite yet. That said, we're going to release any and all information as soon as we have it. What we do know is that GSA Summer Program will take place in June and or July of next summer, and at least part of the student body will have their GSA experience on the campus of our current host institution, the University of Kentucky. Now, we're looking at how many students have applied to each ARC form over the past few years to help inform the total number of student spots for each ARC form in our expanded model. So what that means is that the total number of students we accept across all ARC forms will double for some, but for some will grow in size more than others based on the acceptance ratios, or excuse me, in an effort to keep each ARC form's acceptance ratio as similar to all the other ARC forms. So that essentially you have, let's say, an equal amount of chance of getting into any and all of our ARC forms. So for dance, just so you know, what we currently anticipate that means for the class size, and keep in mind these numbers are subject to change. This is very new news to us as well. So we're still kind of figuring out some of the details, but we also want to let you know where our minds are at. So for dance, we currently anticipate that means that next summer we will accept 40 dancers, as opposed to 24, which is the number we've been accepting for a number of years. So currently we expect to accept 20 dancers next summer. Oops, the slides got away from me there. Going back to the application process, you must currently be a sophomore or junior to apply. We're not going to ask for your GPA, SAT, or ACT scores during this process. You can apply for up to 2 ARC forms, and there is an application fee of $30 for 1 ARC form, $35 for 2 ARC forms, but that is waived if you're on free reduced lunch. Keep in mind all the information that you need about your application is on our website, kentuckygsa.org. I mentioned that applicant guide earlier. Please be sure to read that thoroughly. We're going to look at it a lot today, but it's not going to be 100% comprehensive. So really spend some time with it. If you haven't already, it's one of the best things you can do is start preparing and uploading your materials nice and early, and that's especially true for dance. Once that application is turned in, and it's due by January 9th, by the way, we're going to announce on February 18th which of our applicants have advanced to a second and final round. We call those applicants who have advanced GSA finalists. And then on March 18th and 19th, we will have final rounds, audition, and reviews. And we're still not sure if those are going to be in person or virtual yet. By April 15th, we'll announce the GSA class. And like I said, in June and July will be GSA 2022. So, that being said, I'm going to invite Theresa back into the fold here, and we are going to take a look at we're going to talk about our dance program by way of looking at the applicant guide. So I'm going to briefly share my screen again, and Theresa, stick with us. I'll kind of start and stop sharing my screening here a little bit. Start and stop sharing my screen a little bit. That's what I meant to say. This is GSA's homepage. When you go to kentuckygsa.org, you will come down to this section here that says GSA 2022 Application Important Dates and Virtual Info Sessions. Click Learn More, showing you all how to get to the Dance Applicant Guide. You will see this Applicant Guide section here. And by the way, this is where you can see that a timeline for the application process and also register for other webinars. Down here is where you can access the application itself. But for now, we're going to take a look at the applicant guide. We're looking at dance. And voila, here we go. I'm going to zoom in here, so hopefully this shows up on your all screen really nicely. Maybe I'm going to zoom out slightly. That's a bit much. So the first thing you'll see in the applicant guide is a program description. And what this means is we're trying to communicate to you what it's like to study this art form at GSA. So this is probably the one time in our webinar today where I'm going to read verbatim. So bear with me for a moment, but just to read this, and then we'll talk to Theresa about it a bit more. The GSA dance program centers around study and exploration of composition/choreography, Western concert dance, including ballet and modern, and the African diaspora field of dance. The addition of the African diaspora field of dance as a core element of the curriculum has been made to better reflect offerings at collegiate dance programs and to be inclusive of more dance forms. Taught by GSA faculty and visiting dance professionals, students will receive collegiate and professional level training that is both physically and mentally demanding. Seminars on college programs and dance careers, nutrition, dance science, injury prevention and care, cross-training, and dance history will also be scheduled. If the schedule permits, supplemental class and other dance styles may be included. In addition to technique class, students will learn, rehearse, and perform group choreographic work by faculty. Students who are accepted to the program may also apply for the student choreography project, and if selected, have the work produced. Faculty and student choreographed work is presented in a public performance on the final day of GSA. So I know that's pretty comprehensive, but Theresa, turning it back to you, just tell us a little bit more about what it's like to study dance at GSA.
So GSA for dance is a pretty intensive program. I mean, the program is all day long that you'll be dancing, so definitely need to be physically and mentally prepared for that. As the description said, we do like to teach classes at the collegiate or professional level, so giving you an opportunity to experience dance in that, very different from what you're probably currently studying in your at your home studios for maybe some of you or most of you. We used to have a really strong focus on what we called concert dance or Western concert dance because we were reflecting what was being taught at collegiate programs. And as the description said, we are now including dances from the African diaspora, which we're really excited about. In addition to the description that was listed, I mean, that's pretty much what we do. We also do a lot of interdiscipline collaborations with our fellow other art forms. So we really like to either do classes or presentational performance work with instrumental music, architecture, visual art, film and photography. We've done that, and it just kind of depends every summer. But the description is pretty accurate. Lots of focus on your technique, but also performance and artistry skills as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Theresa. And one thing I forgot to mention to everyone who's watching live on Zoom, please feel free to ask questions throughout our presentation. We'll come to them at the end, but use the Q&A feature here in Zoom. If you could do that instead of putting your questions in the chat, it will just help us capture them. So if you just heard us talk about what it's like to study dance at the summer program, but you still have some questions, feel free to use that Q&A feature, and we'll come back to that at the end. All right. Oh, we got a friend joining us.
Yes. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to pop back over to the applicant guide briefly, moving on from the program description. So the next section of the applicant guide is all about what you'll need to submit in the preliminary round application, very relevant to the part of the process we're in right now. So first thing that we'll talk about is the recommendation process. So students will select 2 recommenders for their application, and I'm going to stop sharing while I talk about this because there's just a lot of text there. So students identify 2 recommenders for their application. You all haven't applied in the past. I know for those of you who are attending, you said that in the poll, but in case you know someone who has, in the past, students have had to submit a recommender who is a teacher, and then one who is a school administrator. We've been very specific on those job titles. This year, we've loosened up on that a bit. And so we're looking for 2 recommenders, preferably someone who knows your student, or if you are a student, you, as an artist who has seen you perform. But if you don't have 2 of those people, that's fine as well. These can be teachers in other subjects. They can be teachers from inside and outside of school. So if you have a dance teacher outside of your school, it's okay to use that person. They could also be someone who knows you as a community member or as a student or in some other kind of learning environment, like a youth minister perhaps, or someone who works at an organization that you volunteer for. So the student just inputs their email address, and then that person is sent a questionnaire where we ask them some questions about the student's personality, their reliability, their artistic passion potential, and other things about a fit for GSA. So Theresa, as our applicants are considering who their recommenders should be, and maybe how they might connect with their recommenders to let them know why they think they're a good fit for GSA, tell us a little bit about what makes a strong recommendation.
Definitely find someone who can really speak about you and how they know you not only as a dancer, but as a person. These recommendations give us a chance to see another side of you from another person's perspective. We always like to think of ourselves as wonderful people, but if other people can attest to that, that's very, very helpful. One of the things to think about is whether your recommender can give specific examples of how you are maybe a passionate dancer or how you are reliable. Those are really good to have those very specific examples that they can refer to, as opposed to just check marking the box that says this person is an outstanding person at reliability. But if there's a story they can tell or an incident that really helps us to get to know you. You know, the application, it feels, the application asks for a lot of things, but it also feels very, it's not impersonal, but it can be impersonal because we don't get to actually talk to you and meet you. So to have someone who can speak highly of you and speak specifically about you goes a long way in the adjudicators getting to know you.
Absolutely. And again, keep in mind for our applicants, it's not cheating to talk to your recommender about why you think you're a good fit for the program and before they submit the recommendation. It's on the recommender to submit their honest opinion and having that context and that information. But everything that Theresa just said can help inform any kind of conversation you have with your recommender. When you let them know, hi, I'd like you to fill this out for me, and here are some things that I hope you'll consider when you fill it out for me. All right. Jumping back over to my shared screen, moving on to the recommendation forms. Again, you're going to see we've got a lot of the information that we just breezed over about that process is here in text form. And next, we have our personal essay and personal question video. So these are 2 of my favorite parts of the application process personally. So we are asking you to respond to 2 essay prompts. One is a written response, and one is a verbal response that you give to us via recorded video. So you'll see the first prompt is for the written response, 250 word max. And the prompt is describe your personal connection to your art form or creative practice. Why and how is it important to you on a personal level? And then going down here to point C, that personal question video in 90 seconds or less. We're asking you to tell us or to describe your vision for how your individual artistic work or creative practice can impact others. And how do you want to affect others through art, and or what response do you hope others have to your work? Quick note, if that video comes in at like 91 seconds or 93 seconds, don't worry. We understand that it's difficult to get that exact duration. Maybe don't submit a 5-minute long video, but we just don't want you to be too worried about a matter of a few seconds. So Theresa, as students are putting together their written and verbal response to these prompts, any advice, any suggestions?
I think with the tip that says be open, honest, and authentic, that's really important. As adjudicators, we understand that in your high school lives, you've only lived a number of years, and you have only a certain amount of experience. So your world is probably going to be very similar to all the applicants that are applying. Just depending, especially where you're from and where all kinds of factors. But we're not necessarily looking for unique, although unique is a good thing, but just authentic. Authentic is the thing that I can't stress enough. The other thing is to allow who you are to shine through. Just as we want the recommenders to be able to speak well of you, I would love to really get to know who you are in these essays, both written and personal. There is some of us who, I'll just say, as dancers, we are being trained all the time to have a flawless performance, right? And it's ingrained in us that it needs to be flawless and perfect. But for these personal essays, I'm not saying it can be super relaxed and casual and like you're doing it like this, but it doesn't have to be overly perfect. If you stumble over your words, that's okay, as long as you get to your point. Authenticity is a really big thing, because again, one of the things to think about is as you apply, even though you are meeting all the criteria of the application, you are being compared to you don't know who else who has also applied. So how you can make yourself stand out. And again, unique is important, but it's not as important as authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Theresa. I just want to re-emphasize what you said, because I think it's so important about not striving for perfection in these answers, because I think sometimes it's so tempting for applicants, and I know I've done this myself in application processes, to just get overwhelmed by what do they want to hear? What do they want me to say? And what we want you to say is what you think, what's on your mind, what's on your heart. So hopefully that takes some of the stress off of it for you all. And these are great things to practice with your friends and your family too. Practice your responses with your friends, your family. Have conversations with them about why you're passionate about being a dancer, being an artist, and hopefully that will help you find the answer that feels right for you.
Can I just add to, just take time to think about those questions before you answer them. The application's not due till January. Hopefully you're not waiting the last minute to submit the application, but for the most part, keep ruminating. Why is my creative practice important to me? And then, just keep delving into that a little bit more each time.
Absolutely. Thanks. All right. I'll pop back over to the applicant guide here. All right, so the next section in the applicant guide, we won't spend too much time on this, but art form specific questions. So this is an area of the application where we just are gonna ask you a little bit about your dance experience and your interest in dance. I actually have the questions pulled up in a test application here, and I'm not sure how clear this is gonna come across on the screen. Let me try and zoom in on this a little bit. These questions are highlighted in green here. So again, we're just going to ask you a few questions about your level of engagement with dance training. I want to emphasize that there are no right or wrong answers to these questions. We are not trying to weed out anyone because they haven't had a lot of training, nor are we trying to weed out people that have had a lot of access to training. Rather, we're just trying to get a little bit of understanding about your what you've had access to. That way, it can help us assess your materials in that context. So you're going to see some of those questions here. Ignore my silly little test answers. But how long have you been dancing? How many of those years of dancing include formal training in codified dance techniques? Are you currently taking dance technique classes? What types of dance have you studied? Has your formal dance training included point work? And if so, how long have you been studying point? How many hours a week are you in class for dance technique? Not to include rehearsal, dance routine practice, or teaching and assisting. And then I love this question. We have an open-ended question for you all. Dance is everywhere. Describe your experience with and or exposure to dance outside of more formal settings, such as studios, theaters, and competitions. Well, there is another opportunity to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're interested in. So Theresa, tell us a little bit more, I guess both sort of maybe a two-parter here, and anything else you feel called to talk about. But if if a student is feeling nervous about whatever their answers are to those kind of dance training questions and how long they've been studying, what would you say to them? And then also tell us maybe a little bit more about that dance is everywhere prompt.
Yeah, so having been a dance teacher for a very long time and teaching in very different environments, I know that dance training is not equal across the studios, because some studios focus very specifically on one type of dance. Some are heavily competition oriented. Some are recreational. So these questions just really give us a sense of what your background and training is. It isn't meant in any way to elevate or lessen an applicant. It just helps us put your application into context, because again, we basically just get to see the videos, and we don't want to make assumptions about you. So this helps us do that. One of the things about feeling like what is enough training or what isn't enough training to get into the program, you'd be surprised that the range of applicants we have and the range of dancers that we accept into the program, because we are looking for that student, that dancer that not only has drive and passion, but also has potential, right? And sometimes where you are doesn't give you access to the same kind of training as another part, but you have potential and you have passion and you have drive. So again, those questions help put us into context. What is your background? Sometimes it's really impressive just to show us that you've only had 2 years of ballet, but wow, you were able to look at that sample video and really produce this amazing video that shows us that you can see and do and produce. Sometimes, you can have lots of training, and that shows as well because of the way you're articulating the movement that we've asked you to do. So again, it's just to put us in context. It's not in any way to make you feel superior or inferior in the process. Just again, more background information we have, the better we can fairly assess you and judge your application. As far as the last question, we really want to know how you're thinking about dance and what your experience in dance. I think sometimes, again, because this is an arts program and dance can be very formalized in a studio setting, we know that that's not the only way dance is experienced. There's social dance, there's ceremonial dance, there's cultural dance, there's all kinds of dance, and we want to know what is your experience. And it's okay if you don't have that experience. If you solely dance in a dance studio and that's it, that's fine. In the same way, if you have always been a street funk dancer, like you are very casual about your dancing and you have a crew and you're not in a formal studio, that's great too, because dance is everywhere and dance means a lot of things. And we're recognizing in the formal concert dance world that we can't be elitist anymore. We have to appreciate and accept all dance forms, which really actually I think makes every dancer unique. It's kind of a postmodernist kind of point of view there, that dance is anything and anything is dance. But I think that's really important for our population at GSA and our dance form in general, and more broadly, that we recognize that dance is all things. It does not have to be these very formal, westernized concert forms.
So even if to ask a sort of like very time specific or maybe era specific question, even if like my experience or exposure to dance is like maybe from like social media or something like that, is that something I could talk about in that question?
Absolutely. I would love to know how social media is affecting or influencing you and your dancing.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Let me jump back over to our applicant guide here. All right, so now let's get into the meat of it, I guess you could say, although that's not true because all of this is very important. But let's get into the dancing part of the application. So you'll see there are 3 videos of you dancing that are part of this application process. And before we introduce each of those, we have some guidelines for all 3 of the videos. So really, these guidelines focus on the space that you are recording in and also splicing. So we've got some very specific instructions for you about when to splice, when not to splice your video, whether you even can, and then also the space that you are filming in, including some guidelines for if you don't have access to a formal dance studio space, Theresa, is there anything that you'd like to offer our applicants in terms of just choosing a space and kind of best ways to submit, best practices for submitting a video in terms of angles and frame and so on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the most part, try to find a space that allows your camera to capture you full body, and when we say both full body, with your body, like as I'm pointing here, fitting most of the frame. So if your body's like this far away, it's hard for us to really see anything. So what can best fit your whole body? Ideally, the camera is straight on, because the way we have asked for the exercise allows us to assess certain things like your alignment, your rotation, your ability to use your spine, so being on an angle doesn't help us really assess that truly. So if that's possible, please try to keep the camera head on. But if your space doesn't allow for that, do the best you can. Now, that being said, like sometimes we think of a studio space very, there's the mirror and there's a wall behind us, and that's our front. But if you get a better sense of space from a corner, maybe make that corner your front so that you can still see, we can still capture you from the front, if that makes sense. Clear as many things as you can in your space so that you're not running into things, or especially in the modern portion, not rolling into something. You don't have to be in a studio if you don't have access to a studio. So be creative with your space. If for one day you can move all the furniture out in your TV room and your den, try to do that and capture all that filming in one day. But you will not be penalized for not being in a formal studio. But if anything, please keep yourself safe. Make sure that the environment you're in is safe for you to dance in. For instance, if it has a ceiling fan, that when you jump, you don't crash into the ceiling fan, or any low lights, anything hanging. So just things like that. Keep it safe for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Theresa. All right. So looking at these videos each a little bit more specifically, I'm actually going to go over the first two kind of together. We'll talk about those, and then we'll look at the third. So I've scrolled down to the next section, which is the modern technique video. And what you'll see is that we have, for both modern and ballet, a very similar type of video that we're asking for. We've basically given you a musical track and a very specific set of choreography, both written out and also a video of that choreography being executed. And we're asking you to submit yourself executing that choreography specifically with the music that we provided. And that choreography, that movement series, represents in one video modern technique, and the other video ballet technique. So you'll see here, just to scroll through this briefly, because there is a lot of text in here because of the choreography being written out. In the modern technique video, 3 minutes maximum, you'll see we're requiring you to use a specific music track, and we've identified that track and also included links to Spotify and YouTube where you can find that track for free. And then we've provided a sample video to demonstrate how to perform the choreography within the maximum time limit. Of course, this is a movement series for you to replicate, and we're not necessarily saying that we love the dancers in these videos, they're wonderful, but we're not necessarily saying that the exact performance that they're giving is the exact standard of technique that we're looking for. We want to see you give your best and your all in these videos. And then we're going to have the choreography for these videos written out, so that takes up a lot of space. But if you're wondering if, for instance, did I see that person in a tailor sit do a lateral curve to the left? Well, you can come down here and check it out. And Theresa may speak to this more, but if you don't know what a Horton flatback series is, one, that's a great opportunity to do some research, but two, you've got that sample video to help show you that. So we're going to have that choreography written out. We're going to have apparel guidelines for that modern technique video, and then we're going to do the whole thing again for ballet. So ballet, it's a slightly longer video, or can be 3.5 minute maximum. Again, we have the music provided, the sample video provided, the choreography written out. There is an option to present point work as well. You are not required to submit point work to be accepted or to audition for GSA, and in fact, we ask you to only submit point work if you've had at least 2 years of ample training and possess sufficient technical strength and development. So we've got some guidelines around that. And then required apparel for the ballet videos as well. Let me see, and that is it. So for Theresa, for starters, just tell us a little bit more about these videos, what we're looking for in these videos.
Yeah, so we're looking for you to replicate this video as much as you can. So if you have had lots of training in ballet, you might be able to look at that and just be able to rattle that right off. But maybe, for instance, in the modern, you haven't had as much modern. How much can you pick up? How much can you execute? If you're not familiar with the technique, I really recommend doing some research, doing lots of practicing and learning, because they are kind of long videos that you have to perform in one straight performance. So really make sure that you're building up your stamina. If you're not familiar with the technique, again, I can't stress enough doing some research, because it's one thing to also just replicate, but it's another thing that we are looking for certain technical aspects that you're executing while replicating. So if you don't understand maybe what turnout in the legs are, maybe look up what are the muscles and the bones that you should be utilizing while turning out. If you don't know what a lateral curve is, it's not just the side bend. How can you look that up? There's a lot of resources on the internet now, especially since we've had to learn dance a lot online. There's a wealth of resources that are now available. One of the things that I do want to mention is that because we've had to learn a lot in video, I think most of us have acquired skills to recognize a video is not necessarily a mirror. So if you see the dancer in the video bending this way, make sure you know if they're really bending to the right or left. And that's why that applicant guide is really great, to look back at the words, and it will tell you, oh, the applicant is doing a lateral curve to the right. So make sure that you yourself are doing a lateral curve to the right and not mirroring the video and actually doing one to the left, if that makes sense. Definitely these two videos are looking more at technical skills and understanding your level of technique based on these videos. But in addition to that, we're also looking for artistic skills, so that you're just not going through the motions, your face is blank. You can have a layer of artistry and performance in those videos. And Nick said this already, but it's to go above and beyond what you see in that video. So what the dancers in those videos are showing is a very, very much an acceptable level of performance and technique. And if it's possible for you to go above and beyond that, I highly encourage it.
I had to do it at least once in the video. Started talking while I was muted. Tell us a little bit more about point being optional. Do you have to study point to be considered for GSA? Or if you don't dance on point, will that be held against you?
Yeah, point is, again, completely optional. We say that a lot, and I think people stress about, oh my gosh, if I don't do point, it shows me in a negative light, or if I do point, it gives me extra point. It really is totally optional. If you have enough training, and we really say enough meaning 2 or more years on point, because point can be, if not done correctly and well, can be dangerous. So only show us point if you feel that your strengths are strong enough to support your ballet technique, or you want to show that in addition to the ballet technique that you can also dance on point. Again, it is not required. It does not hurt you if you don't do it. It's just something extra, but it's not extra in the sense that it's bonus points. Yeah, it just tells us, hey, after 3 years of doing ballet or studying ballet, I have been allowed to go on point at the studio that I'm studying at. And so these are where my point skills are, not necessarily that point makes me a better candidate for GSA.
And we say this actually higher up in the applicant guide, earlier in the applicant guide, but clearly we have 2 technique videos specified to be ballet and modern. But I just want to read this paragraph that we have above the technique videos and then ask you to respond to it if you have any response. GSA recognizes that applicants may not have experience in the genres of dance that they're being asked to perform for their preliminary video audition. So if you're not experienced in one or more of these styles of dance, don't be discouraged. We welcome all dancers to apply regardless of experience. Execution of the performance videos may require research, practice, and other resources. So you've sort of spoken to this a little bit, Theresa. But I guess just to re-emphasize, if someone is looking at this applicant guide and maybe doesn't perceive that they have had a lot of experience with ballet or modern technique, should they apply? What would your advice be to them?
I would say if you're passionate about dance and you're really interested in coming to the Governor's School for the Arts, yes, you should apply. As I said, dance is everywhere and dance is all things. And even if you don't have experience with it, if you have a passion for dance and you have a passion for wanting to study all different kinds of forms of dance, then show us that passion by learning these videos, even if you don't have experience in them, and presenting us with your best skills that you have that may be shown through these techniques. You do not have to be a ballerina or a modern dancer to come to GSA. Experience does help, but it's not required, right? Again, we're looking for dancers who are passionate, who have facility, who have a strong understanding of maybe dance in a formal dance setting, but also who are just willing to learn, have natural skills and facility that makes them be able to see and dance and want to be a part of the creative process. So yes, apply. Yes, show us what you can. I can't tell you how many dancers I'm very impressed with who I can tell clearly have not maybe studied this form of dance, but boy, they have put in the effort and the time. And that's the kind of person that I want to work with, because I know at the program, they will put the effort and the time to be successful in the program and be somebody that I really want to work with and help them become and help them be the artists that they can be. Stumbled over my words there a little bit, but I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it made great sense. Thank you, Theresa. All right. Jumping back over to the applicant guide, looking at the final video that students submit. This is the prepared solo with music. So this is a 60 seconds maximum video. And this is a change from the past. This is, and also I think another exciting opportunity for a more open-ended part of the application, which I love those because I feel like more open-ended prompts allow us to learn more about you as applicants and give you the chance to make more creative decisions. Which I know can be challenging sometimes, but is also hopefully an exciting challenge. GSA is about exciting challenges. we work in the business of exciting challenges quite often. So we're asking you to present a 1-minute solo that demonstrates your artistry and self-expression in a dance genre that is outside of ballet and modern or contemporary. And we're even saying to choose a dance genre that pushes you outside of your comfort zone. For instance, something that you don't study on a regular basis. So we've got a couple other guidelines there. It doesn't necessarily have to be newly choreographed. We do encourage you to create your own choreography if that's something that you're able to do. And then we ask that these are not recordings of competition solos, and just that you wear a color that contrasts the background of the video. So Theresa, tell us a little bit more about this delightfully open-ended invitation for our applicants to tell us a bit more about themselves as dancers.
Yeah, so I know that this might be sort of a scary thing to choose, like what should I present in my solo? But for me as an adjudicator, it's exciting not only to see what you present, but what you have chosen to present, how you choose to challenge yourself. So again, at GSA, we're not interested in giving you what we think you already get. We want to give you a new experience in dance. So we want to see how open you are to experiencing new things in dance. And part of that is giving you this choice to show us, well, I've never ever studied this style of dance before, but I'm going to take the time and effort to learn it and showcase that in this solo. Now, granted, it feels uncomfortable because I think an application makes you feel like you should always present your very, very best. And again, as dancers, we're trained to always have these flawless performances, right? Again, I think we're looking to find out a little bit more about your personality as well as your technical and artistic skills in dance. So how brave are you in trying something new? I can't stress that enough. And I apologize, guys, for my dog who is seeing people walk down the street and gets really excited when she sees people walk down the street. But anyway, so choose something that is something that's new to you. Now, we also recognize that perhaps with the style of dance that is more in your comfort zone might mean that ballet and modern is what is uncomfortable for you. So then this is an opportunity to showcase maybe what you do well, because it's not ballet and modern. So again, anything kind of goes here. Just again, give us something that gives us another aspect of who you are as a dancer, as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that we talk to applicants a lot about, because there are in other art forms, there's sort of versions of this where it's sort of a very open-ended prompt. And, we hear from applicants all the time who are like, well, if I choose this, is it the wrong choice? Or if I choose this, is it the right choice? And Theresa, let me know if you disagree with this. But I think that in all of these applications, this is beyond GSA, I encourage people not to think about right choices or wrong choices, but more of stronger choices and weaker choices. And if someone were to ask you, why did you make this choice? Why did you choose, in this case, this genre in this video? Think to yourself, well, what would your answer be? And if your answer to that, if you feel like it, based on the information we're giving you, lets us learn something really great about you as a dancer, and based on the criteria, which we'll look at in a moment, really showcases how you are a dancer who's ready for GSA, then that might be a pretty strong choice. We definitely have guidelines here, but also every artist knows, some great artists have broken rules before too. But again, I'm not necessarily inviting everyone just to break all the rules of the applicant guide. They're guidelines, not rules. But I think it's important just to recognize that there are no inherently wrong answers here, ways to do this, but rather there are ways to, there are going to be stronger ways to do this, which are ways in which you feel like you know why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that, Theresa?
Oh, no, I definitely agree with that. Just having, been in education a lot, and this is not just like studio education, but working in high schools and at the collegiate level, I do get a sense that students feel very much that there is a right and a wrong, and they're always looking for a right and a wrong. And to be honest, the life is not that black and white, And I know it makes things easier if there was a yes and a no, which is one to do. But we have to remember that dance is part of a creative process, and that if our choices were always one or the other, our creativity would be very stifled. So this is again encouraging you to show that creative part of yourself. Be creative in your choices. Again, as Nick said, there are stronger ways to do it than others. But if you have a conviction as to why you particularly chose this particular solo to do, then be confident about that. I will say that, and this is in the guidelines, and I know Nick has said that before, but please don't, please be mindful of not sending us competition videos. Even if you do a competition routine, make sure that you are filming it in the studio, not in a competition kind of setting. Yep. That might be the only guideline that I would be like, hey.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Theresa. So just for everyone watching, we've just got a couple more areas of the applicant guide that we're going to pick Theresa's brain about today. And so just a reminder, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So feel free to be submitting those in the Q&A feature in Zoom if you'd like, or you can wait till the end to do that as well. Right, share my screen again. So moving on through the applicant guide, the next section we're really going to breeze past, but I do want to point out that it exists. It's the final round requirements, and that's a description of what you can expect to experience in the final round if you are advanced to that second and final round. So we're not going to really talk about that too much today. There's plenty of other information that's more relevant to you as an applicant at this point in the process, but feel free to take a look at that. But then we'll go on to section 4, which I think is one of the most important sections of the applicant guide, one of the most helpful, which is the criteria. So what criteria are what we're scoring you on. So if you were to look at the score sheet that Theresa and or any dance adjudicator for GSA had in front of them while they were watching your materials, it's going to look like this sheet of paper with numbers underneath it. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible with you about how we're scoring your application. So what you'll see is the title of each piece of criteria. So the top example here is technical skills. And then we're going to give you an example of, as best we can, of how an ideal applicant would exhibit that for us. So you can see here that our criteria for dance are technical skills, core strength, execution of exercises and choreography, artistic choices, you heard Theresa mention those earlier, and dedication to art form growth and community. So this is where you're demonstrating your commitment to and your passion for your art form, your desire to grow as an artist, and also showing us a side of you that makes us think, hey, that person's got something to share with the GSA community, something to offer. So I'm going to try and zoom out so we can see as many of these as possible while not hopefully losing the print on your screen. But Theresa, tell us a little bit about the criteria, what we're looking for. Anything you want to go into more specifically?
Yeah, so I would say that, sometimes people tend to focus on technical skills a lot as dancers, as like the number one thing we're looking for. But all of these criteria make up your holistic assessment. So technical skills, core strength, execution, artistic choices, dedication to your art form. All of that makes tallies up who you are. So consider each one carefully. And again, I'll go back to technical skills. Sometimes people just tend to really focus on the technique. I know how dancers are, but artistic choices are important. And I can't stress that enough. It's one thing to go through the motion, and especially on video, it's really important to see what those artistic choices, and artistic choices is not about facial expressions entirely. It's about how you're interpreting the music. Even if the music is, for the technique videos is very regular and bland, there are nuances to those music, and how are you adding choices to layer on top of those technical skills. The more that you can incorporate these ideas into your application, the more that you will stick out to the adjudicator, because again, everyone's doing, with the exception of the prepared solo, everyone is answering the same question and doing the same technical videos. So how are you, again, what are the layers that you are adding to help you uniquely create your package of who you are? Again, authentic. Unique is good, but authentic.
Yes, authenticity is key. Great, awesome. Thank you, Theresa. There are a couple pieces of criteria that you all see are only there for the final round. I just want to point them out. And then finally, we have our tips section here at the very end. Although just because it's the end does not mean it's any less important than everything else. I want to point out that these are not just like generic dance tips. Theresa and I and the rest of our colleagues work on these every year, customized to this GSA process so that we are hopefully resourcing you all and giving you as many helpful tips as possible and hints. So we aren't, as you can see, there's a good number here for dance, which is fantastic for you all. But Theresa, without going into detail for all of these, do you have like a top tip or two or three that you think is worth mentioning while we're on this webinar today?
Yes, I would say don't wait until the last minute to do this application. The dance application is quite dense. So we're asking you for a lot of things, and those videos take some time to not only learn and practice, but then film. You're probably going to have to film several times. So don't wait until the last minute. January seems like it's a long way away, but even if you're not filming tomorrow or next month, you can already be starting to learn those exercises, so that when when it comes time to film, you are feeling confident about your performance, as opposed to like, I just learned it and well, here goes, So time, not only in the videos, but also again, thinking about your essay, processing it, delving into the question deeply, being as authentic as you can. That's my second point. Please be as authentic as you can, because we want to know who you are. We are trying to select you to go into the next round. And if we can't get a sense of who you are, you give us a compelling reason to want to meet you in person, So please think about that. And then all parts of the application and all parts of the criteria are important. So show us that you are the best candidate for GSA, even if there are parts that are not easy for you or not as comfortable. Show us that despite that, you are willing to go for it and do it.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple ways of thinking about advancing to the final round. And I think for a lot of our applicants, it's easy to think, oh, they're looking for the best of the best, and the best people are going to be the ones to advance to the final round. And I'm not going to say that there's not elements of that aren't a part of our process, But keep in mind another thing that can make us want to see you in the final round is to say, I want to meet that person. There's something there that I want to learn more about. So keep in mind, like that's something that you can show us as well, make us ask. And yeah, and keep in mind too, hopefully this is clear after hearing Theresa and me talk tonight. We want you all to do well. We are already on your side. When we open up your application, we are not going in there ready to just rip it to shreds. We are going into your application saying, "Oh boy, I'm really excited to see what this dancer has to show us." So keep that in mind too. I know it can be scary to walk into an audition or submit your application, but just know that we want you to do well. So the only other part of that applicant guide, and I don't need to show it, is just a timeline, a reminder of that application timeline. But that really takes us through walking through the process for dance. I noticed we haven't had any questions come in yet, but I will open the floor for if we do have any questions. Feel free to put those in the Q&A feature, and we will be glad to address them. While we're waiting, Theresa, is there anything, any dance that you're excited to see coming up this year, whether it's virtually or in person?
Yes.
A surprise question.
Yeah, well, because you kind of like put me like thinking. I was like, well, what am I going to see? Well, what I'm really excited about is that theaters are opening up, and as a performative art form, that we are returning to theaters and being able to present dances on stages again. And as much as I have really embraced and loved the fact that we have been innovative and how we are presenting dance through social media and video and film, it has been exhausting. And so I'm just really excited to be back in the theaters. I have my own work a new work that's going to premiere in February at the University of Kentucky. I'm actually going to go next weekend to see the Louisville Ballet return to the theaters. And so, and I have a friend who's got a performance up in Cincinnati Mutual Dance Theater next weekend as well. So yeah, I'm very excited to just return to the theaters. It's exciting. So
awesome. I agree. I'm so pumped. So we did get one question. If you are not extremely familiar or versed in modern, what is your advice on how to approach that portion of the audition?
Great. Yeah, so we recognize that most studios do not teach modern dance. And so what I would do is really take a look at that video. Start early, looking at the video, dissecting, processing the movement. So as you learn the movement, then what I would do is go and look at the words that are used to describe the movement, and then look up what that is, so that then you're not just mimicking the movement, but you're understanding what the movement comes from. So for instance, an example would be doing a flat back. Right. So if we think flat back, especially if we come from other genres of dance, we would just think, oh, that means my back is straight. But in modern, flat back truly means that your torso is tabletop and parallel to the floor. So even if you have the flexibility to do a flat back, but can be on a diagonal, that would be incorrect in modern. So take a moment to learn the movement. I would watch the video. I would try to learn the movement. And then after learning the movement, I would go back and look at the text and then try and find out what is the basis of that movement. A lot of that modern technique is based in Graham technique, Cunningham technique, Limon technique, and Bartinian fundamentals, all of which are mentioned in the tips. So being able to look at that and maybe watch some videos, because now there's a lot of videos available on those techniques, and being able to see like, oh, I see where they pulled this from. And there's a lot of times there are videos of instruction where the teacher will really talk about how to do it. Then you can learn a lot more. It is requiring a lot of work for you, but it will also show us, if you take the time to that research, it will show in your video, and it will show us how much effort that you put into your application and how much effort you'll put into the program.
Yeah, absolutely. I think two great things you mentioned. You mentioned more than two great things, but two I want to highlight. One, you just gave a great example of how to use the tip section, because there is information in there that is not earlier in the applicant guide that could be helpful. And then two, we designed this application process to help prepare applicants for future application processes as well. So frankly, regardless of whether you get into GSA, our hope is that after going through this application process, you're more prepared to apply for other dance programs as well. So we hope that that's part of your motivation for applying, although we certainly understand that, everyone wants to get in. Well, Theresa, I think that is our only question. That must mean that we were super comprehensive in our answers. So that's how I'll choose to interpret it anyway. Just a reminder to folks who are watching this live, or if you're watching a recording and you do have questions, just give us an email or a phone call. We'll be glad to answer them for you. And I guess Theresa, as a little send off, any final words of wisdom or encouragement to young artists watching this video today?
You know, celebrate yourself as an artist. Arts are important, and I don't think that's ever stressed enough. We're always so focused on things like STEM, and not that STEM isn't bad, isn't good. You know, it's a wonderful thing. But remember that artists are creative, wonderful people who actually enhance those other programs. So celebrate that you love this art, that you're passionate about this art, and apply for GSA.
Awesome. Well, Theresa, thank you so much for your time and your conversation tonight. I had a great time. And thank you to all of our attendees and our person who asked a question today. So keep dancing, keep making great art, and we look forward to seeing your applications and supporting you throughout the process. So everyone have a great night. I'll talk to you later, Theresa.
All right, bye.
Bye.